Well, hello, good morning, good morning, and welcome to this special Saturday edition of Kingdom Empowerment Nugget. I know I don't normally come on here on Saturdays, but it's a special occasion. Today is March 1st. It is the beginning of Women's History Month. And I'm also very, very excited to report that I am safely in Ghana. So I'm very, very excited. It has been an amazing couple of days just visiting different museums and learning history and just experiencing the Ghanaian culture. It has been amazing. I just got reinforcement in what I know to be true about the history of our people, the history of women. um, it's been an amazing, amazing experience. I have to say this. I've always um, stood strong on the fact that we as beings, as human beings, are very resilient, resourceful. Um, as a African American woman, just knowing all of the different things that we have had to walk through and had to endure, and the fact that we're still standing, and not only are we still standing, we're still standing strong. Strong, sisters, strong. Okay. And so I'm very, very excited. I don't normally, and it's not a put down, it is intentional. I will say this, that I don't normally call out my ethnicity because I don't have to, because, hey, you truly can't miss it, right? But I know that my call and my purpose and my walk with God is not just to the quote unquote African American woman. It is not. But since I am one, there is obviously a very, very special place in my heart, an extremely special place in my heart, because I know the history of some of the things that my own ancestors had to encounter, that my own mother had to walk through. Very sure that my grandmothers had to endure some incredible challenges and what have you in their lifetime. And being here in Ghana, it's my first trip to Africa. It has just been an amazing thing. And so I definitely wanted to come on and start this month off with celebration of womanhood as a whole. The fact that we are the givers of life. We are the ones that God gave that task to allow life to grow within us. And I say this quite often, and it's not, and I mean it from the depths of my heart, that it's not limited to the physicality of a baby, a human baby. It is also in dreams and visions and ideas, different things that God will allow us to incubate within us to birth forth. We can birth forth amazing things, not to mention a baby. Okay, not to mention that we can push life out like a for real baby. I did it twice. It ain't yeah, it's a for real something to endure. And I tell people I did both of my children natural childbirth. I was very young. I'm grateful because that was probably why the body said, okay, we can do this. But it's more than a notion. It is more than a notion to have something growing within you. It's more than a notion to have, to bring forth life to ideas, to inventions, to dreams. We can help our husbands, our kings, in so many different ways to birth forth their dreams. That's why I said it's not just limited to physical life. It's far more extensive than that. But I just, you know, I've learned some things since I've been here. And there are some people that I had heard about but hadn't really, really dived into the story of. And so I wanted to take today and this whole month, I want to drill in and talk about women, across the globe, not just African American women or African women, but women across the globe who stood upright in defiance of oppressive regimes and being oppressed as a woman and different things that they had to overcome, some disabilities. I'm thinking Helen Keller. Just the overcoming of disabilities, the fact that she was deaf and blind, but rose to preeminence in her field. It's just that it's just an amazing thing. We have a resilience within us that is unlike anything else. Now, hear me, kings, hear me, because you know I love you, kings. I do, and I am so grateful for the ones of you that come along and stand with us in our struggles against oppression. But I want to talk today to the ladies because this is our month. I thought about this and I mentioned it to my apostle and the associate pastor that I'm here in Ghana with. And it was like, when you think about February is dedicated to Black history, and March is dedicated to women history. I was like, the two most oppressed people on the planet got back to back months where our history needs to be illuminated. Our history needs to be spoken out and told. I've learned some history about the first Black or independent president of Ghana since I've been here, President Kwame. I'm not playing with that last name, okay? um, but just, to go and to visit his museum and hear how he stood up against the oppressors in the colonized British manner. And it's an amazing thing. I hope I'm not rambling, but I'm taken in by all of the rich history that I've learned and the solidifying of what I know to be true about us as a people. It's been amazing. It's been an amazing experience. I fully and wholeheartedly recommend it if you haven't traveled to the motherland. I tell people all the time, it was like, this was never on my bucket list. And I'm just being truthful. I never had a pull and a draw that I wanted to come to Africa. It was just like that just wasn't my thing. I still want to get to Greece and Santa Terrini and that whitewash villa overlooking the Aegean Sea. That's my pull, right? But it's been a wonderful experience since I've been here. So what I really wanted to talk about, though, today is Women's History Month. And I kind of wanted to give you a little history lesson on Women's History Month. So, how did Women's History Month come into being? And I'm doing this for our daughters and our granddaughters. I have great granddaughters. I have a daughter, I have granddaughters. I've got 4 granddaughters, and I now have 4 great granddaughters. And so I think it's very, very important for our girls, our daughters, to know who they are. I quite often, I love this line in Wakanda, both in Wakanda and Wakanda Forever, when Queen Mother is like, show them who you are. Show them who you are. If you don't know where you come from, if you don't know the history of a thing, you don't know who you are. And so as a woman, as a matriarch in my family, I am the matriarch of my family as it stands right now. And I know that there are things that I need to pass down to my girls so that they know. Now, I have a very mixed, blended family. We are multi-ethnic family. My grandchildren are Black and Hispanic. And so it's important that they know their Hispanic culture and their Black culture so that, they understand the blend of who they are. I think it's really important that we teach our girls the history of how they've evolved to be in the culture that they are in right now. And this is globally, this is across the globe, that we need to make sure that they understand the power they possess as young girls growing into young ladies, into young women, or and into full-blown womanhood. there is stages that they have to walk through, and there has got to be appreciation for their gender on every level. And if they don't get it from us, their mothers, their grandmothers, their great grandmothers, where do they get it from? It's important. I think of how, even in the biblical days, as they passed down scripture before we had a printing press, they had script and they would read the scriptures to the youth. They would pass down the stories, the generational stories to the youth. I was talking to Pastor Cherry about this morning, actually, and how we don't pass down the heritage that we have to our younger generation in the way we should. And this is not, a political riff or anything, but seriously, our history as African Americans, as Black people, are being erased out of the history books and out of the school curriculums. And we need to make sure that our people know their history. Our children need to know their history. It's not a doom and gloom. It is a history of resilience. It is a history of strength. It is a history that says you rose above all forms of oppression and you stood. It is that history that you can be proud of where you come from. And the same is true to our young girls. As women, we have fought oppression for years, for eons. Let's put it that way. It's not just years, it's through the centuries. We have fought oppression on so many different levels. But yet we rise. I love Maya Angelou's poem. Yet we rise, we stand. We still have girls today and women in oppressive regimes that, are not allowed to get an education. They're not allowed to freely speak. They're not allowed to have a say-so in their governmental entities. And we that do have the freedom to do that, we have to speak out on their behalf. We have to stand up for them. We have to be those voices. We have to be the lioness. We have to be the one that roars and changes the atmosphere around these women and these girls. Because if we don't, who will? So that's really, really important. And so here's the little history. Me and Chat GPT, my Micaiah. I asked her to give me some background on Women's History Month. And so she took me all the way back to the origins of the International Women's Day in 1911. And it was the idea of celebrating women's achievement that began with International Women's Day on March 8th, 1911, which was first observed in Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland, only in those 4 areas, all right? And then it later spread worldwide. Thank God for the Austria, Denmark, Germany, and Switzerland movement to say we need to honor our women. That's an amazing thing. That's an amazing thing, because let me tell you, God honors you as his daughters. Please know that. All right. You may not be honored in your home. You may not be honored in your country, but God honors you as his daughter. So know that. So from 1911, we fast forward all the way to 1980, when we had the first Women's History Week. We went from a day in 1911, and it took 79 years to get to 1980 to get Women's History Week. And the push for a dedicated time to recognize women's contributions in the U.S. gained momentum in the 70s. And because it gained momentum in the 70s, in 1980, President Jimmy Carter, I know I like that man, President Jimmy Carter issued the first presidential proclamation declaring the week of March 8th as National Women's History Week. Yay for President Carter, right? God rest his soul, as they would say, his 100-year-old soul. And at that point, schools and organizations across the country began using this week to highlight women's achievements. And then in 1987, it expanded. The expansion of Women's History Month grew. due to the advocacy of the National Women's History Project, now the National Women's History Alliance, and they successfully lobbied Congress to extend the celebration to an entire month, the month of March. So now you have a little background. In 1987, Congress officially designated March as Women's History Month in the U.S. And since then, it's been adopted as a global thing where they recognize the different contributions that women have made over the centuries. Okay, because literally it has been over the centuries. So I'm going to be doing some honoring of different women throughout the month that have made a difference. And so I figured that since I was in Ghana, right now I am in Africa, I wanted to honor a woman of African descent. And when we were at the museum yesterday, the National Historical Museum, I learned about Asantewa. Ye Asantewa, okay? And you're going to see a post about her so that you can read about it. Once I finish this broadcast, I'm going to post it. But I titled it The Lioness Who Refused to Bow. Okay, the lioness who refused to bow. And she's known for the war of 1900. It was called, I can believe it was the Golden Stool War. And she rose up when Britain came in to attacked the Ashanti kingdom and took away and to steal the golden stool. Now, I also learned this yesterday that stools are symbols of authority here in Ghana. I went to W.B. Du Bois's national monument and museum yesterday as well. And it was amazing. It was like I came to Africa to learn more about W.B. Du Bois than I knew about him in America. And he was from America. That was interesting. But I found out that his last years he spent in Ghana. In fact, he died here at the age of 95 years old. He died here in Ghana. He was adopted by the Ghanaian people, and he adopted them as his people. And this is where he and his wife lived out their lives. So that was interesting. But anyway, back to Ye Asantewa. Okay. She had a quote, and the quote says that if you, the men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we, the women, will. I shall call upon my fellow women. We will fight till the last of us falls in the battlefield. Now, let me just make sure that you understand this was a meeting of the chiefs, the Ashanti chiefs, and they were frightened of the British because the British had came in, they had taken their king captive and put him in exile. They had stolen the golden stool, which was their symbol of authority. And I guess the British representative had met with the chiefs that morning and had really put the fear into them. And Ashanti had been named as Queen Mother of the Ashanti Empire by this time. And so she stood up. She had a voice, and that was what she told them. Now, understand, they just needed somebody to light a fire under them because she did command the army, but that army had men and women in it. Those chiefs were like, we're not going to let this lady out to us. We're going to rise to the occasion, which I applaud. I was like, that's amazing that she had that kind of influence on them that caused them to rise up and to follow her into battle. Now, of course, I thought about Deborah in the Bible. Deborah was a judge in the Bible. And she told Barak what God said, and Barak said, I'm not going unless you go with me. And it was to go into battle against the Syrian king. And so she was like, okay. She was like, I'll go with you. But this day, this battle will be given to a woman. It's something to know that even though certain elements that are of people that are insecure in who they are will try and erase the authority and the power that God has given us as his daughters, as his queens. Um, but that's I always like to make sure that you understand it's a small segment of the people that are like that. The majority of our kings, our men, know the power we possess, know that we are there to strengthen them, we are there to have their back, we are there to make sure that they rise to the place that God called them to in their kingship. We're not there to compete with them, we're not there to put them down. We are there specifically to be their help meet, to be that one that can meet them where they are and help them in what God has called them to. We have to understand that. That's really, really important. I always drive that home because, and I've said this before, that I understand the feminist movement. I understand uh, why the women felt that they had to be in competition. I do. I get it. However, that's not where God called us. Okay. God called us as his daughters not to compete, but to complement, to make sure that we were those ones standing with our king. So with Ashantawa, I found it very, very interesting that she just called them up to who they were created to be. She put a fire under them so that they would rise up and not walk in fear, but walk in the power and the position that God called them to. So she stood boldly against oppression, and she led the army and defied the colonization and left an indelible mark on history. But understand this, lionesses, because I want to call forth that Ashanti spirit in you as well, to know that you have to rise up, you have to say something. You cannot just sit back docile and and see the attacks across the globe, including the US of A, see the attacks across the globe that may come against us and not say anything, not rise up, not take your rightful place. Now, it's going to come with a price, all right? When you dare to rise, I never want to leave you out there without giving you the whole story. When you dare to rise, you will be labeled a troublemaker. You will be a rebel. You will be someone probably ostracized and don't quite fit in. You will be told to be quiet, to sit down, and just accept things as they are. But you know what? Hear this, lionesses. You may be unhip or uncool. We're in this unhip but unstoppable momentum right now. You may be unhip, but you are also unstoppable. You were created to, you were not, let me get my notes straight. You were not created to fit into a broken system. You are called to shift atmospheres, to challenge oppression, and to reclaim territory for the kingdom. You are God's kingdom ambassadors. You are God's kingdom daughters. All right. And so I wanted to lead off with the story about Yaya Santawa so that you can understand that, women have been doing this for years and years and years. Now, I believe she died in 1917, but she died in exile. She was captured and she died in exile, but not before she led that revolt, not before she called the men to come to arms, not before she stood up against oppression and made herself or walked herself into the history books. She made a difference. She made a difference. The Ashanti tribe, I found this out yesterday as well, has been a tribe that's been attacked for centuries. Centuries, not years, not decades, centuries. And they've always risen. The Ashanti tribe has always risen. And to know that the queen mother of the Ashanti tribe, and they're still queen mothers today, like that's still a place of high honor, but that the queen mother has the ability to spur on the kings. They have the ability to speak in to the kings and make sure that the kings arise and do what's right for their tribes, do what's right for their country, do what's right for their people. And so that's what we're called to do today. We're called to rise up and do what's right for our sisters, for our daughters, for our granddaughters. Rise up. You see my background, lionesses, there is power in your roar and strength in our sisterhood when we lock arms. This is not about culture differences, it's not about ethnicity differences. It is about sisterhood, because across the globe we have walked through different stages of oppression. We have walked through different places of slavery. We still have our little girls that are being sex trafficked right now, and little boys too. But I mean, it's like we got to make sure that we're locking arms to fight the regime that would try and stifle us, that would try to imprison us, that would try to enslave us. And we do that because there's strength in our numbers and there's power in our resilience. And so that's what I wanted to bring to the forefront today, dealing with the first day of Women's History Month. I hope that you've gotten something out of this. And if you have, drop a little emoji in the chat, a little lioness emoji, or just say, I am a lioness and I will make a difference. I am called to stand with my sisters and I will make a difference. I am unhip and unstoppable. I will make a difference, because what I will do is I will roar. I will roar. I will not allow my voice to be silenced. Okay. All right. That's it, guys. I hope that this has been a blessing to you. I really, really do. It was something that was really on my heart to do. And I have nothing but time because it's morning there, it's night here. And I'm like, my body is still going, okay, I'm flipped upside down. So, yeah, I thought I would just take the time to share. All right. I love you with the love of Christ. And you know that. You know there's nothing you can do about it. And once again, happy Women's History Month.